Time now for Consumer Confidential with David Lazarus.
That's right, Laz is here once again, and today we're talking about this new analysis on how much money the richest Americans made in the past year. Laz, let me guess, they didn't lose any.
No, in fact, they did pretty well. Now look, as lawmakers are scrambling now to pass tax cuts that analysts say would primarily benefit the wealthy, I'm here to tell you that a new report finds that the wealthy are doing just fine, thank you very much. The nonprofit Oxfam out with a new report finding that the 10 wealthiest Americans saw their combined fortunes rise by $365 billion over the last year. That translates to roughly $1 billion every day in gains. By contrast, the typical American worker making about $50,000 a year, which is to say it would take 726,000 years for 10 typical U.S. workers to make as much money as the top 10 U.S. billionaires amassed over just 12 months. The timing of the Oxfam report underlines what many economists say, that wealthy people really don't need any tax breaks at the moment, especially if funding those tax breaks will in part require nearly $1 trillion in cuts to safety net programs. It also highlights the ever-widening gap between America's rich and poor. The richest 10% of the U.S. population now controls almost 70% of the country's wealth, meaning that the remaining 90% of us have to make do with roughly a third of the country's wealth. Economists note that the last time the wealth gap was this pronounced was during the Gilded Age of the late 19th century, and that's what led us into the Great Depression.
Didn't end well.
No, not so much. Spoiler alert.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should just be looking to Gen Z for our economic forecasts.
Well, indeed.
Yes.
Let's move on from the Great Depression to, are we in a recession? Now, economists will tell you there's a very clear indicator for that, and that is 2 straight quarters of economic shrinkage. That is a recession. But the Wall Street Journal reports that younger folks out there are developing wholly different criteria for determining economic hardship. Some of this stuff might surprise you. For example, the popularity of press-on nails indicates that women are cutting back on manicures. Or reports of declining tips at strip clubs suggests a decline in discretionary income. Gwyneth Paltrow's decision to eat cheese again could be taken as a sign of impending doom. Other signs of trouble, according to the Journal, include the popularity of low-rise jeans and Lady Gaga getting back into pop music. Now, I know anyone with a background in economics can say this all sounds pretty silly, but I do want to point out that serious economists also rely on empirical data to try to come to their economic conclusions. Former Fed Chief Milton Friedman famously tracked sales of men's underwear under the belief that when you saw sales of men's underwear going down, that indicated that we were heading into a downturn. Is it true? I don't know, but Milton Friedman. All I can tell you is the first quarter of this year, we saw the economy contract. If the economy contracts in the current quarter, that's a recession.
I didn't get the low-rise jeans one. What was that about?
I tried to go deeper into that as well. Apparently there is a trend where you wear more business casual, and that's a sign that you're a little worried about employment, and hence storm clouds on the horizon. I'm not sure how the low-rise jeans played into that, except maybe some scofflaws out there who aren't paying attention to the economy like they should.
Yeah.
I was thinking my generation still has all of them in the closet somewhere, so instead of buying new ones, we're just going to wear the old ones again. But I'm not Gen Z.
I'm thinking the Gwyneth Paltrow thing alone is the indicator.
What has the world come to if she's eating?
She's eating cheese again, for goodness sakes.
So what are you going to track now?
What will I be tracking? Won't be men's underwear. I'm tracking saddle shoes. It turns out no one's buying them.
Terrible sign of the time.
I know, right?
It is time for Consumer Confidential with David Lazarus.
An interesting song choice, no less, but we are not just talking about the music today. We're talking about a provision in President Trump's so-called big, beautiful bill that is really raising some concerns. Laz laid out for us.
Can't touch this. One reason Republicans are so enamored of President Trump's big, beautiful bill is because you can squirrel away all sorts of things in its more than 1,000 pages. And one provision that's just come to light would be a ban on states regulating AI for 10 years. In response, dozens of civil rights, privacy, and law-oriented groups have sent a letter to Congress expressing alarm about this measure. They note that if passed, the provision would prevent state lawmakers from addressing any harm to their local people from AI. Here's some examples. Colorado passed a law last year requiring tech companies to protect consumers from being in any way discriminated against by AI in hiring decisions. New Jersey passed a law this year imposing civil and criminal penalties on anyone who distributes misleading AI content. And of course, California, which is the country's leader in privacy regulations, is weighing a whole wide variety of bills, including some that would address sexually explicit AI deepfake images, which are, of course, very troubling. Now, with something like this, the question then becomes, okay, if you take states out of the equation, would lawmakers in Washington be sufficient to oversee AI? Well, the answer to that is probably not. I mean, our first tell there is it's these same lawmakers who put that provision in the bill in the first place. Second of all, Silicon Valley showered Washington with nearly $400 million in donations in the last election, going to both parties. So does Washington really want to get on the bad side of that? I don't think so.
So if a tech company designs a system or an algorithm that intentionally or deliberately harms, or perhaps unintentionally harms the public, consumers, things like that, that company is no longer accountable whatsoever to lawmakers and John Q. Public.
At the state level.
At the state
for
level.
10 years.
For 10 years.
Now, clearly, the genesis of this provision is that Silicon Valley is investing billions of dollars into AI and all its supporting data centers and energy sources and all the rest. It's going into this cutting edge technology. I'm not taking anything away from AI. It's probably going to have all sorts of beneficial impacts on society. But at this point, we've been seeing a lot of things, you know, celebrities being imitated, children having sexually explicit images being posted by their classmates. That's bad stuff. That's the kind of thing that state lawmakers need to be on top of. But this is essentially a 10-year hall pass for big tech.
Why do you think the GOP wants to keep that in the bill?
Big money. It's that simple. I mean, there's a lot of money coming out of Silicon Valley, and this is a priority for them. It's that simple.
I was asking chat what it thought about it.
And what did it say?
It said, I don't have feelings. And then it's like, but I can give you an informative take. And it goes on.
Ask me again in 10 years.
Yeah. Okay, they're nice pants, but Levi's is dropping nice pants.
Yeah, not just nice pants, maybe the pants de tutti pants, and that would be Dockers. Levi's is selling its Dockers brand for more than $300 million as the company, Levi's, strengthens its focus on denim. Not a huge surprise there. The buyer of the Dockers brand is a company called Authentic Brands Group, and that's a company that acquires struggling brands and tries to turn them around. For example, these are the guys who now control Forever 21 and Reebok and Nautica. Well, Levi's made it clear last fall that they were putting the Dockers brand on the chopping block, and clearly that's now happened. Levi's introduced Dockers all the way back in 1986 to expand into khakis at a time when the Gap was still, you know, cool. Levi's pitched Dockers to guys as a fast track to good fashion sense, as this commercial from the 90s makes clear.
Beau pantalon.
Hey, she says nice pants. Is that nice?
Dockers stone-washed khakis.
Beau pantalon, I think. But As the last man in America wearing Dockers, allow me to say that this is a real blow. I found Dockers to be a nice step up from ordinary khakis and chinos, the kind of thing that you could still be comfortable in and still wear to work. But that's changed because workwear has become more casual. Denim, for example, jeans, that's now considered workwear. So yeah, I think Dockers, are they going to turn around under Authentic's new management? Probably not. And for fashion-forward guys like myself, that's a real shot across the bow, because if Dockers are becoming roadkill, what next, I have to ask? Argyle socks? Saddle shoes? Spare me.
Can you lift your leg up? Oh, wow. Oh, my.
Exactly. Yeah, man.
Style.
The first one's free, everybody.
Thank
okay?
you very much. That's right. Welcome to OnlyFans, folks.
Oh, you got to pay extra on OnlyFeet.
No more nice pantalones.
No, I'm Googling.
Beau pantalon.
Was that?
Yeah, nice pants, I say, but no, Dockers, roadkill. And that's unfortunate, I think, because at their time, they were the right pants at the right time.
Didn't Forever 21 just go under?
Yes, they did.
Oh,
yeah.
Was that Michael C. Hall in the commercial is my next question.
Was it?
I don't know.
I'm not
It
sure.
looks like
I don't
Dexter.
think so.
But I only, I'm Googling.
I don't think
And also,
so.
think about how long ago, no.
The 90s?
Yeah.
Welcome back. If your summer vacation includes a short-term rental, you're going to want to pay attention to this. My buddy Carlos Sauceda reported on a growing scam involving bogus listings on both Airbnb and Booking.com, with a little help from yours truly.
Booking.com. Booking.yeah.
You might have heard the slogan, Booking.yeah, but in this one instance, it's Booking.scam. This Rosemead home on Reading Avenue got some unwanted visitors from people scammed out of a fake rental listing. The given address is correct, but the home does not match the pictures on the listing.
We found out our house was listed on Booking.com, and we are not renting our house on Booking.com. So we had some people show up at our house thinking they had rented our home.
Homeowner Alexis Cavish has never listed her home on Booking.com. She doesn't even have an account. Yet, within the last 24 hours, 2 sets of strangers have come to her doorstep showing confirmation that they booked the house as a short-term rental through the website.
Luckily, so far, the people have been really nice, but there's strangers coming to a house where I have kids. I got a playground, I got kids here, and I don't really like the idea of strangers coming to my house.
She's had to turn them away through no fault of their own. The home is listed for almost $400 a night.
I'm frustrated because the company is clearly not doing their due diligence to why doesn't the owner have to prove some sort of ownership before being able to charge people money to stay?
It's a common enough scam that there's a name for it, short-term rental scams, and it's most common on Airbnb and Booking.com.
KTLA consumer specialist David Lazarus says scammers are getting more sophisticated, and since some of these sites automate their listings, there are no real eyes that are vetting the addresses. Here are some tips to not fall victim.
Stay on the site. In terms of any payments, any communications, don't leave the platform. So if the listing says they want you to pay with Zelle or Venmo or some other digital payment plan, you walk away. And especially if they ask for crypto, you walk away. Let's talk ready-to-eat breakfast cereals, the morning meal of choice for many American children. Most parents already know that a lot of these cereals are not very healthy, but a new study finds that they're even less healthy. Let's take a look at that. What this study finds, based on the Mintel Global New Products database, is that of 1,200 children's cereals introduced in the U.S. market over 13 years, that would be from 2010 to 2023, the study finds that as far as fat content goes, up 33% during that interval. That's a big jump. Sodium levels up by 32.1%, and sugar, already one of the top ingredients, up by nearly 11%. So that brings us to my top 3 tips for breakfast cereals. First, read the ingredients. Sugar and high fructose corn syrup often figure very prominently. If you want an alternative, look to granola or muesli with some fruit added. Also, keep an eye on the sodium. While many parents might not associate salt with breakfast cereals, higher sodium can be troublesome at a time when many foods are becoming less and less heart healthy. Also, consider multivitamins for cereal-loving kids. As the nutritional values of some cereals declines, you may want to backfill the missing vitamins and minerals with a nice gummy chewable.
John will be singing this at karaoke Saturday nights.
Right, tip your waitresses.
Consumer Confidential with David Lazarus on your Friday.
That's right, Laz is here in studio, and today we're talking about a big merger in the cable TV industry.
A big merger. This puts the mega in mega merger. Charter Communications, which is the parent of Spectrum, so if you're a Spectrum customer, we're talking about you, is going to merge with rival Cox Communications in a $34 billion deal intended to make a cable and internet colossus. This comes, as you probably know, the cable industry is a bit on the ropes as streaming and wireless providers increasingly cut into their business and eat their lunch. Now, while Charter's and Cox's services have very little geographic overlap, so it's not that kind of issue. These guys are clearly trying to think that they'll be more competitive if they can gain the economies of scale that come with enormous size, which is to say they seem to think that a merger will make their respective problems twice as easy to solve as opposed to twice as big. Obviously, there's different ways of looking at that issue. Interestingly, to sweeten the deal, because they're going to need regulatory approval for this, the companies need to appeal to the Trump administration, which hasn't been quite as friendly to mergers as you might think. So to grease the wheels a little bit, the company said in an announcement that their merger would put America first. That's music to someone's ears. And it would create jobs by moving one or more overseas call centers back to the U.S. But the only way you can make that work financially is by having fewer service reps working the call center, because otherwise all call centers would have moved back here anyway. So you'd have to reduce the overhead to make it work here in the United States. The bottom line on all of this is that we know from past so-called mega mergers that typically what happens in a situation like this is you get, well, reduced service quality and higher prices. Anytime there are fewer competitors in the marketplace, that seems to be the inevitable outlet. But at this point, the cable industry is literally fighting for its life as its video customers leave in droves for streaming. Its internet customers, well, that's pretty much reached saturation. And so now they're trying to look at wireless as a way to try to compete. But look how far they've gotten now from their core business model.
Cord cutting has been going on for a long time. So if you're saying this is going to lead to poor customer service and higher prices, what's the incentive for consumers?
Well, for consumers, if you're cord cutting, you still need internet access. And that is the Achilles heel for cord cutters, is you're still going to have probably a cable line coming into your house so you have high-speed internet coming in. But that's gradually changing. And the thing that's a catalyst in this merger is 5G wireless. That is now trustworthy enough from a content point of view that you don't really need the cable line coming into the house. That's what has the big cable companies worried, because as wireless becomes more reliable, well, that cuts into their business. But right now, that's the thing. They've reached saturation in terms of how much growth they can get. And so to gain further growth for their shareholders, they've got to find it somewhere. And that's probably going to be in wireless.
All right.
Meta is dealing with an epidemic of scams on its social media sites. Mediums?
Media?
Media. It's media.
They got platforms.
Yes.
Yeah, and this, look, it's not going to be a newsflash when I say if you go onto the internet, you could find fraud. What makes this interesting is The big guy out there, Meta, which runs both Facebook and Instagram, is being called Scam Central. Who by? Well, the Wall Street Journal, which went out and talked to regulators, banks, and even got its hands on internal Meta documents attesting to the fact that, yeah, Meta knows that there's a lot of fraud going on its sites. To be sure, Meta gets a lot of traffic. So obviously you could argue that they're going to have more scams, more frauds than a smaller platform because they have so many more users. That said, it becomes a question of what are they doing about it? Now, Meta, for its part, says they are aware of some of these problems, many of which have been supercharged by AI and crypto, which just incentivizes the fraudsters to be even more aggressive and more sophisticated. And Meta says that's the problem for them. As these scams become more sophisticated, they become harder to spot and harder to shut down. Moreover, it's like whack-a-mole. The fraudsters get caught in one place, then they move somewhere else. The thing that's really troubling for me, though, is Meta says they have no legal responsibility to either do anything about this or to make their users whole. And if that's the case, then I say, let's impose that legal responsibility, for goodness sakes, just as publishers are responsible for libel and fraud on their newspapers, magazines, websites, whatever their platform might be as well. So clearly there's a precedent for a publisher having to be responsible, although Meta will tell you, we're not a publisher, we're just a platform. At the same time, allow me to be the first or last to tell you it's the old saw that applies. If it looks too good to be true, probably is.
Yeah.
Even you, David Lazarus, fell for something.
I'm embarrassed to say this. I was on Facebook one day and I saw an ad for LL Bean shirts at a really cut rate. And I'm thinking, well, I like LL Bean and this price is phenomenal. So I bought a shirt. When we got our credit card bill, we took a look and it said something like Joe's Pizza.
Oh.
I kid you not. I didn't get the shirt, needless to say, but luckily my credit card company was able to shut that down. But that speaks to the fact that I'm not saying I'm, any great shakes here, but I can spot a scam as well as anybody, and this one got right by me.
Wait, did you get taken for a lot of money, or did someone just
$15 for a shirt?
Wow.
So, but even
would have been a great deal.
Got lucky.
But the fact that it looked like an LL Bean ad. It seemed like I was purchasing from the LL Bean site. I mean, everything about the scam was sophisticated enough to fool someone like me who knows all the red flags, who knows all the tricks, and even I got snookered.
Yeah. Just don't click on anything. And if it's from a reliable source like a friend or somebody you know, follow up by text or phone and ask them, hey, did you send this to me?
Also, the takeaway I learned from that is if you see something cool on Facebook, don't buy it there. Go to the LL Bean website and buy it there. Exactly. That's how you do it.
Hey, will you match this sale I saw on Facebook? It wasn't a real thing.
Precisely.
Also, just wanted to mention a lot of people here at KTLA have been saying the same thing, that people have been creating accounts in our names, trying to get them into a private chat with a weird link. Just message us to the verified account. Don't fall for any of that stuff.